Hi ladies, welcome to the Feminine Mystery. My name is Azalea Dawn, and on this channel I discuss elegance, femininity, and leveling up to attract the right masculine provider for you. If that sounds right for you, then please consider subscribing and hit the like button to share this message with more like-minded women. Today I'm going to be talking all about the topic of what to do when a man pulls away to make him desire you even more. And the reason that I thought about talking about this topic is that oftentimes when you're in the early stages of a relationship, there might just be a period where a man just starts to kind of like pull away a little bit. You start to hear from him a little bit less. Or maybe he, suddenly just becomes like very busy from with work or something like that. You can just feel as like a very intuitive person that he's starting to pull away from you. And it might make you wonder, okay, like what is happening here? Like what's going on? And even more so, you might be wondering, especially if this is somebody that you've invested a lot of time in, or that you could really see a future with, that you really see as a positive match for yourself. You might want to know like what you can do to turn the relationship around and get it back on a more positive track. So I'm going to talk about these sorts of things, and yeah, if that sounds right for you, then let's get started. Now, first things first, you want to remember not to reward bad behavior with good things. You have to understand that a lot of people, like, they have like an inner child that is not healed. A lot of people are not on spiritual journeys. They're not on these, like therapy journeys. They have not, worked through their issues. And therefore, like, they often resort to behaviors that you see in a lot of children. A lot of you, if you are teachers or early childhood educators, you're very familiar with this. But a lot of times, like a child, when they are not getting what they want through positive behavior, they start to resort to negative behavior. So if they can't, for example, like play with their favorite toy, because they have to do an assignment, they will start throwing things. They'll start, screaming or like making a lot of noise, or just generally like misbehaving. And that behavior does manifest quite a bit in adults. Like when you see like sometimes in a relationship, if you are dealing with a man who feels like, like maybe he has like his own personal insecurities, or maybe he's somebody who feels like he's not good enough to be with you, or he's not getting the things that he wants out of you at the pace that he wants. Maybe he wants to pressure you into doing something that is physical with him that you are just not going to do. This is when like this kind of behavior might be popping up, right? If he's not getting what he wants from you with good behavior, he'll start to practice the bad behavior where he's just kind of like retreating, not giving you any explanations. He's not talking to you. He's not communicating with you, all that kind of stuff. And you want to make sure that you are not responding to that bad behavior with good things, right? You don't want to turn around and start to reward him with coddling or with positive attention or anything like that. That's because that's going to reinforce that behavior in him. So years later, if you're in a marriage, let's say like if all goes well and you are with this person, you have now set the tone in this relationship that when he's having a problem, instead of coming to you like an adult and communicating what it is, that he can just do this. He can just retreat. He can pull back. He can just kind of like ghost you almost. And, like have this really immature response towards you, and that will encourage you to give him what he's really wanting, whether that is more attention or more affection or just more closeness, right? He will start to understand that he can get these things from you through bad behavior. So it's very important that you know very early on to not respond. Like if you have ever like witnessed some of that like negativity going down on my channel, like that first and foremost, I never respond. I am not going to like give attention to people who are behaving poorly. Like that is just encouraging them, not just like with me, but in general. It's just encouraging them that this is how they can act with women. It's how they can act with other people to get attention that they're probably lacking in their lives. Because like you really have to think about the kind of person who will write like 5 paragraphs to you, like a complete stranger at like 3 a.m. Now, the next thing that you want to do here is take inventory of your relationship. So once you've stopped putting energy in on this person who is not putting energy in on you, right? When they are behaving poorly towards you, the first thing you want to do is stop. Stop engaging. The second thing you want to do is start to take inventory of where you are in this relationship, right? Because that is very important. Context is king, and you really want to understand what is going on that led you to this place, because a lot of times we are just kind of like living moment to moment. We are very reactionary, right? We don't really see patterns, we don't see trends until we see them in hindsight, because moment to moment so much is happening and we're just reacting to all of these things that are happening. We're not introspecting, and therefore we can't see things that clearly. So it's very important that if you are in a situation like this, that you stop and you take inventory. You start to look around at the context of this relationship as a whole. So that might look like, having a journaling practice where you are, just writing out the relationship, maybe like starting to play back like how you met this person, what your interactions with them have been like, and what you liked about those interactions, what you didn't like about those interactions, etc., etc. It might just be something like that on a private level, but if you have friends that you trust, female friends that you have very strong relationships with, that you can trust that the things that they say, the things that you share with them are not going to be shared outside of your relationships with each other, right? If you have those kinds of friends, you can talk with them about it. If you don't have that, but you still want to talk, therapy is a great option. Just making a regular practice of seeing a therapist and talking to a person who literally is an expert in the area, right? Somebody who has dealt with hundreds or thousands of people who are in relationships, right? They're going to be able to help you gain insight and clarity into what may be going on in your situation. But you just want to, make some sort of practice that will help you sort of be more introspective and look at where you actually are and how you got to this place. You want to make sure that you understand what's happening. And you also want to make sure that you understand who this person is to you. Is he somebody who you are just like in the talking stages of a relationship with? He has not asked you to be, boyfriend, girlfriend, or anything with titles yet? Are you somebody who has been maybe in a relationship for the past 6 months? He asked you very early on to be, monogamous with him, and he has just suddenly started to pull away, or he's just suddenly starting to act like very strangely. Right, you want to understand what is going on there first and foremost, and it's not always as obvious as you might think. So you'd be surprised what kind of clarity you can gain into your situation just by being a bit more introspective. Now, the next thing you want to do is be honest with yourself. Is this guy even worth the effort, right? Now that you have sat down and actually, gain a lot of clarity, gain perspective about where your situation is this guy actually worth the effort of correcting something with? Is this a person that is even worth it? A lot of the times, when I am listening to friends of mine, female friends who are, sort of caught up in a situation like this, it is almost never the case that they are with somebody that would actually be good for them in the long term. Now, I am not the kind of friend who will chime in with unsolicited advice. I'm not the kind of person who's a man basher in real life. I want everybody to be happy and, the best relationship or lack thereof that is right for them. So I will be the person who's just yeah, how does that, how does that make you feel, that kind of friend? But a lot of times I'm thinking oh, okay, well, the issue is that she's gonna see eventually that this guy was no good to begin with, and she's gonna break up with him, but I'm gonna let her get there, right? And it always comes to fruition, because the kind of guy who behaves like this, 9 times out of 10, he is not worth the effort. He is somebody who won't commit to you very early on in the relationship, and he's starting to get the understanding that you're not going to be providing him certain things physically unless he makes that commitment. So that's a big one over there that is often causing this behavior. He might be somebody who is starting to understand that he does not have the material funds to provide for you lifestyle wise, and that his relationship with you is just not going to go to the place where, you might think it is. Like, he's starting to understand that he's just, in a way, not good enough for you. And, rather than, admit that, because that's a lot for your ego to take, he just, wants to kind of silently drop out. All sorts of things might be going on. And 9 times out of 10, when a guy is behaving like this, it's because he knows that he is not right for you or not good enough for you. And if he knows this, then why don't you know that? Right? That is the big thing here. If he understands that he is not somebody who can be the man of your dreams, why don't you get this? It's just food for thought. So you really want to be honest with yourself and start to think about whether or not he's really worth the effort that you are putting into this situation. Because maybe once in a while, it's like, yes, this is guy, he's really for me. I just don't understand what happened. But 9 times out of 10, it's not meant to be. Now, finally, ladies, I want to get to the actionable advice here, and that is to make your presence desirable and elusive, right? So the number one thing that you need to consider here is that you don't want to start to, again, rewarding him with good behavior. You don't want to start calling him or texting him or initiating conversations with him when he would always do that with you first. That's not what you want to do. Instead, you want to start to hit the social scene. You want to start to make your presence known in your shared social circle, right? You want to start going out more, being at more events, right? You want to give it start to give it the year of yes vibes. You want to start to be everywhere. And the number one thing that this is going to do in your situation is that when a man starts to understand that if he doesn't want you, other people do, that is the biggest incentive that's going to get him to adjust his behavior, right? So I just want to talk, for example, about me, individually. I don't like to talk a lot about me because, the evil eye, but in my situation, right, I cannot, take, Uber alone because, all the time, I start to get hit on by Uber drivers. I can't really, go a lot of places because, if I have, some service person or some, guy somewhere is gonna, come and, try to essentially poach me. It's a lot of that happens in my day-to-day life, and therefore my husband is often not he is not far, right? For example, one time I was just checking in at this hotel that I was going to stay at, and I had a man who was he was approaching me. I was near the line. He was asking me information about myself, etc., etc. And he looks at my finger and he sees the ring, and he's commenting on it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here with my husband. And he isn't oh, that's interesting. Instead, he's like, oh, where's your husband? And then he goes to look. It's a lot of that thing. And that is why my husband is never, far. He understands that when his presence is not, around, that other men will start to move in. It's a very, almost primitive sort of thing. It is literally just, nature playing out in our genes that, men are looking for opportunities a lot of the time. And if they are not there, then other men will start to make those moves. And when a man sees this, it can often remind him whether or not he wants you or not. Because if he starts to see other men approaching you and he's just oh, that's fine, I don't care, that's going to solidify for him that, he doesn't really want you like that. But when a man is very much passionate about you, when he loves you, when he really wants you and no one else but you, he is not going to tolerate other men sort of making moves on you. And when you're out and about, in your shared social scene, right, this is going to start to happen. I promise you from experience, the second that this guy sort of lets his presence up, other men who are maybe friends of his, even, don't be surprised. They're hey, if he doesn't want you, I do. Right? They are looking for their opportunity, especially when you're very leveled up. You look really good. You are very, visually pleasing, auditory, your personal presence is very pleasing to be around. Other people would like to be a part of that. And this man will soon come to realize that. So that is just my point here, that you want to start to, be out and about a little bit more, because you're going to start to immediately get him to realize what the stakes are, and that if he's not going to treat you right in a relationship, if he's not going to be in a relationship with you, that somebody else will. And sometimes that's just what it takes to get, like a masculine man, especially to get his attention back, to start to make him understand what is at stake, that you're not just going to be, like sitting at home alone on a couch on a Saturday night. You're going to be out with somebody, and he has to decide whether or not that's going to be him. So that is my advice to you, ladies. If this video has been helpful for you, or if you've enjoyed it, then please leave a like below and check out the rest of the videos on my channel. Again, I talk about leveling up, hypergamy, and attracting the right masculine provider for you. Until next time, I'll see you in my next video.